is a game I made earlier this year for fun.
오늘 드롭인데 아직도 개발하고 있어요?
네. 빨리 시연하고 싶어요.
게임 지금까지 어때요?
아직 뭔지 모르겠어요.
방금 시작했으면 일단 뭐 캐릭터 찾아야 돼요. 여기 캐릭터. 네. 그 다음에 셀레스하고 약간 다른 게임인데 그래도 플랫포머나 퍼즐 좀 들어가고. How is the game so far?
Oh, yeah, quite cool.
I finished this game.
All those levels?
Yeah. Did you improve? 그 전번보다 새로운 레벨이나 뭐 개선했어요? 추가했어요. 버그 다 해결했어요?
히트박스 추가했어.
네.
히트박스 추가했어. I think that's when you're going back to West? No? I'm little English.
I can maybe roughly translate if you want, but
Translate, please.
roughly. The game is far from easy.
I like the level design.
Yeah, because you kind of have to leave the top one for the last.
Yeah. But I like that that's not obvious. It's a little.
Yeah. It's a great
And there's
mechanic.
like multiple ways to do it.
Yeah, indeed.
It is.
How do you like the game so far?
Yeah, it's really cute.
Kind of puzzle style.
The ramp is like it's very easy for a long time.
Yeah.
But I went and played like one harder level and it was very hard. I love the
Art style.
story, the art style.
And then, yeah, you move and then down. That's kind of it. And you can try to choose your card by getting the right one. It's not too hard on purpose, but I got the Noel one.
High level of confidence.
Yeah, it's good.
Hey! All right, well done.
Well done. Someone helped me for the 3D, of course, but and you get this one.
That's cool though. That looks really great. I love that crab. Yeah, you totally like get in there and reef on stuff, dude.
Nice creature.
On the game you've seen so far today, like
I think it's weird that that like outside of Korea, like the Korean indie game scene isn't better known.
Oh,
It
yeah.
seems like there's so many people doing such cool
oh
things.
sure there is.
And it's like we like it needs to like break out, or we need to like pay more attention or something. 'Cause there's so much like cool stuff happening here.
Yeah, and you've seen only like what 5 today, but you know.
Yeah, but it's like clearly the scene is like well organized.
Oh, for sure.
People are doing really cool things.
Yeah, as we were talking earlier, like there are kind of smaller events for people to show. There is meetups like with games and people come when they want, they show us their game and stuff, and then like VIC. So in the end, as you said, it's kind of quite active, and I'm not sure, of course, the language, but except that maybe you hear more about Japanese games abroad.
Yeah, I really don't know what it is about. I feel like not knowing the like Korean indie scene. I don't know why it's true, but like you go on Steam, if you look for it, you can like find their games by like Korean indie devs, and it's like they even do. It seems like they even do really well. But but maybe like in Korea and Japan, and
Yeah.
like somehow we just don't know about them, and I don't really know why.
Another explanation I can find is, they tend to have their own website for everything. Like one big example is they don't use Kickstarter; they use Tumblr, which is like their version of Kickstarter. And you can see a lot of indie game making it here, but no one else than Korean hear about it because they make everything in Korean. They make all their games, their
And like social
goodies,
media,
social media, everything in Korean. They don't even think about abroad because many of them, as you maybe saw today as well, can speak English, but they don't. They are a bit afraid. They don't really like it so much. They know it will be good, but they don't really try. How was like communicating with them today?
I mean, it's great. People communicate through their games, so I don't even need to speak the same language.
Yeah.
It's like that juicy, crunchy game design. Like does all the speaking for them.
So you didn't feel like it was a big barrier, like?
No. Plus, like a lot of Koreans do speak English, and to some extent or another. So I mean, the language barrier has been like not a problem.
Yeah. Thank you for your insights.
Yeah. Thanks. It's been.
So yeah, I'm Noel. I worked on games for a long time, but I don't usually use big game engines, even though I think they're really cool. When I say that I make games without an engine, I don't mean that I make them entirely from scratch, but I don't. I use libraries, and I use lots of really cool frameworks and stuff like that. And I also don't mean that I don't use any tools. So I use lots of tools to make games. And then when I say that I'm making stuff without an engine, I also don't mean that I'm like coding it specifically for a single platform. So this is kind of what it generally looks like when I make games. So I use my own little framework that I made called Foster. So this is a game I made earlier this year for fun called Celeste 64. And this is a game I'm working on right now with my brother. This is kind of a smaller side project that we've just been doing for fun. And it's also in my own little framework thing. I'm not actually doing all the hard work of like UI libraries and stuff. So to get this set up was like not that much code. And so I started with GameMaker, which is definitely an engine by all definitions. And that's how I started making games when I was like a kid, like 12 years old. And then I slowly moved through other things. And I think this is kind of a gradual, like it wasn't like I didn't one day be like, I'm never gonna use an engine or something. I just kind of gradually fell into this. So why do I like making games this way? I like to control my tech stack. So that kind of ties into like, I like the open source and communal aspect of it. So I like working on code that is open source. And so I like knowing my game can still work in 20 years. And I also just like learning how games are made and the technology behind them. So it's just kind of a fun thing for me to do. And then finally, I also like it when people mod and hack my games. So some people don't like it when people hack apart their games. I really like it. I think part of the reason Celeste is still around to this day and people care about it is because of the huge modding scene that developed out of it. So I really like people being able to easily hack apart my games. And if the tools and resources and libraries I use are all open source and accessible, it's much easier to do that because all the stuff is just there. So I also want to talk about why I think it's a bad idea to do this, because it can take a lot longer to get a project started. You're kind of on your own. I was talking about the communal aspect of it earlier, but when things go wrong, if you have to, find some terrible bug somewhere, you kind of have to find it on your own sometimes. So yeah, I guess ultimately, would I recommend making games the way that I make them? It's if you find it fun, which I do, but not everyone does. So yeah, that's it.
Hello. So how is kind of the Senpai meetup going so far? Like out of maybe the indie game you've seen and
It's been really nice. Yeah, I don't know. The community seems really nice. People seem really excited to show their games, which is really cool. Yeah, it's been a nice experience for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, have you noticed maybe anything with like kind of the Korean indie game situation? Like,
I feel like people in general seem really excited to show their games. Like, I feel like they're really excited to have people play test it and stuff, which is really cool. Because that's not always the case. So it's nice to see people who are excited about, here's my game and I want you to try it, and see what you think and get honest feedback from it. So that's cool.
Okay, yeah, because you've been coming to Korea kind of like on a trip, and you were
Yeah.
interested to see a bit like kind of.
Yeah, we kind of just reached out on a whim. Like Colin just wanted to find like, hey, are there? We don't know very many indie developers here, so it was kind of like, well, we're going to be here on a trip, and Colin reached out and was like, you know, are there indies here, and who can we talk to who also make games? Yeah.
So I think you've been working directly with Colin on one project before, but which didn't finish, maybe.
I don't know if we've ever worked together or not. Maybe. I don't think we have. But I've known Colin and Sarah. I've known both of them for like 15 years. And I met them both at like a game jam. Yeah, I guess like 15
Long time
years
ago.
or so. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess for Celeste and stuff, because you did mainly the programming and stuff. But like, is to your knowledge kind of a Celeste or maybe your other game a thing in Korea, or is it kind of a part of the world you haven't have much access to, or
Yeah, I mean, as soon as like for languages that I don't speak, it's sometimes hard to tell. Like,
Yeah,
do people like it? But yeah, we definitely have had like fan art and stuff like that from Korea before, and because the game is localized, I feel like it's become definitely more accessible. But it is, since I don't speak the language, it's hard to tell like exactly who likes it.
It's hard to even know. You mean?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's hard to know exactly because you can kind of tell a little bit because you get fan art or you get messages and you Google Translate them, and it's hard to tell like it's hard to reach community like when you. I mean, I live on the other side of the planet, so it's hard to like know exactly what
Yeah,
people
for sure.
like about the game,
I can
or
imagine.
how they like it. Do they like it in the same way, stuff like that.
Because Colin was mentioning earlier that he was surprised how few we hear about Korean games abroad. So I was curious, kind of about vice versa, and maybe of course there's a language, but is there anything else?
Yeah, that's interesting too. Yeah, I mean the language is the biggest one for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean it isn't too bad to get stuff localized, so it's nice. I don't know. I mean, depending on the game, some games it's very hard to get localized because they have a lot of words. But like for Celeste, because it's not the dialogue is quite short, so it was accessible for us to actually localize it. But I don't know where I was going with that. But like, I guess. Barriers, I don't know if there's like huge barriers besides language. I guess going to events and stuff, like I see games from near me because I go to events near me.
Because near you, I guess you haven't seen much Korean games before. Maybe Japanese ones sometimes?
Yeah, I've seen some Japanese ones. I've seen some or some indie developers from Tokyo. I've seen like a booth at like PAX.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Like
that. But for indie developers, I don't know in general. Like for
it's hard to get there with a game anyway. But
like big studios, I definitely see. But for indies, it's harder to know about what's happening in other places,
Yeah,
and
for
that's just
sure.
true
And
across
to even
the board.
go,
Like doesn't like in Asia and Europe and stuff like that. It is harder to know like what indies are doing in general that aren't local to me, because I see the ones that are local because they go to events and it's close by for them and affordable. So yeah.
And I liked you because your talk was mainly about how you work and kind of the no engine spirit, and I feel like being European myself, it's kind of a big thing, especially with Godot and stuff, you hear about it a lot. In Korea it's less of the case. Like sure, there is kind of an indie spirit, as you might say, because like maybe you've seen it today, but one guy was actually working on Godot during the meetup.
Yeah, it was great.
And but my point is, I'm not sure that many people here have the kind of indie mindset of I will use open source. It's levels of a culture here, I think.
I mean, I wasn't really thinking about that stuff for a long time either. I only started thinking about it probably in the last 5-6 years is when I started thinking more about accessible software and open source software and things like Godot, which are really cool. And also, I don't even know how much like the Unity sort of blow up that happened in the last year.
Yeah.
Like how many people here are aware of that news or not? I assume
they are.
Yeah. But yeah, so I started caring more about open source stuff from that, and I think it is like if I gave the same talk in Vancouver, like it would be the same. Most people are not doing what I'm, most people are using Unity
still
and
today,
like that.
indeed,
Yeah.
myself included.
Oh yeah, and there's no problem with that. Like I don't think there's anything. I think you should use whatever you want to use to make a game, or whatever you find fun, and whatever actually lets you get a game finished. And for me, that's just happens to be using my own stuff because that's what I like to do. But I don't think there's no.
Of course. I just mean, I feel like it's also related to the indie spirit in some way. You know, that was kind of my point. But you might argue otherwise.
I mean, I do think that like indie stuff and like open source software and indie software does tie together.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, thank you. Do you have anything else you have planned maybe for your trip regarding games, or anything you would want to say to current indie game developer, or
Not too much. I'm excited to see that there is a cool scene here. It seems like there's a lot of people making really awesome stuff, and that's always exciting. I like visiting places and seeing what cool stuff people are making. And I've never been here before, but I really like the city. It's really nice exploring. I like walking around it a lot.
Yeah,
that's been great.
So, okay, the problem I was going to say is that when your hobby turns into your job, then you still do your hobby and you do your job, and now that's all you do.
It's kind of what my whole thing was about, And it's even funny. I told this to a few people already, but it's funny to me that you call the project you showed today, City of None, a side project, because it's so polished already. I played it until the frigate thing.
Oh yeah.
And with a few more level, I'm not sure how finished it is, but you kind of can call it a day already,
Yeah, no, like it's, I don't want to say side project in terms of like we're putting a lot of effort into it. We really care about it. I guess I'm just saying.
It's not the main thing you do right now.
I have multiple projects in the go basically. But yeah, side project is probably a bad word for it. I don't, because it is a lot of time, and it's my brother. He's working on it full time. Right? Like that is. His
okay. Because I think one of the see you.
Goodbye.
One of the main thing also might be what you explained in your presentation. Now you have your own environment that you kind of made yourself, and you are very comfortable with it, and you are very fast. Maybe. Does that explain things? Or,
so I've gotten into the point where I have stuff set up the way I like it, and I can kind of just go in that little space.
Like my question will be, what explains, because you are mainly doing programming still, I believe, or
so it depends on the project. For the game with the Celeste team, that is I'm mostly doing programming. I do some kind of like programming art kind of stuff, like technical art, I guess. So like shaders and stuff like that. But for this game, I would say I'm doing about half of the art. So my brother does some of it, and I do some of it.
But my question will be, how do you reach such kind of, if not effortlessly, but almost effortlessly, if I may, level of polish and stuff? Like, is it through? Oh, you can leave it here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, cool.
See you around.
Have a good one. I'll see you next time.
Nice meeting you.
Have a good one. Nice meeting you as well. Bye.
Like, is it through your relationship with your colleagues you met with the time, or is it yourself, or is it because you personally took the time to learn everything, or how did you gather your experience basically and use it?
I think a lot of it's just like a lot of it's time and just kind of playing around with stuff. So I've been making games like that since I was about 15 years old. So that's been 17 years of me doing
it's been a while, indeed.
And I don't want to attribute it just to that, because I think people can make stuff a lot faster. But a lot of it's just kind of like years and years of kind of, I like it when things squish this way and things do that. And also learning kind of like faster programming techniques of just like, when I want this to happen, I've coded this 100 times, so I just coded it.
Yeah, you have your, as like kind of what's in your...
I just pull it out of my brain somewhere. It's because I've done it like 1,000 times. So it's like, okay, just do that. It's like, how many times do you write a for loop before you,
for sure.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that, but then with visual stuff or with little feel things, you kind of like get used to like the patterns that you kind of do.
But because this is mostly programming, but so even for the polish part, even for the UX, even for the playtesting, even for
I think it's
how did you yourself kind of gather the experience necessary to get to a good level in this area as well, or is it thanks to the people around you?
It's definitely a bit of both. It's definitely the people around. Like if you meet other people who are doing creative and cool things and talk to them and play their stuff and see what they're doing and get feedback from them, then that'll help you learn faster. I think if you can talk to people like, hey, and they don't have to necessarily even be people who are doing it too, but just getting feedback from people who are artists or musicians or whatever they're doing. Just how do you feel about this? That can help you learn faster. But I also think a lot of it is just like, you're just
if you just experiment and be able to fail with your experiments too. Just like I'm just gonna like with the UI in that game, I think we drew it like 30 times, and then we're like, this is the one we're kind of happy with, and we might change it again, but that's kind of where it landed for now. And because there's just a lot of kind of messing around, but yeah, I've always done a bit of programming and a bit of art, so it's just those kind of switch together in a lot of different ways.